I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Yeah, we have minutes. We did not approve last month and this month. Any comments on them? I think you all got copies. We have a motion.
Motion to combine everything into one motion. I'll make that motion.
So I would go with approval.
That's an approval.
Okay, we have a second for approval of the minutes. A second. Okay. John? Aye. Barry? Mary?
Aye.
Brandon? Aye. Peter? Mike? Aye. And I'm an aye. So the minutes are approved. We have a letter we received from Georgie's Foundation, which Mary will read to you now.
Dated February 27, 2023, Mr. Ken Bain, Planning Board, Town of Tusten. Dear Mr. Bain, I'm writing on behalf of the Georgia Foundation of New York in hopes of clarifying some questions that arose at the January 24th Planning Board meeting. The perception of some neighbors attending the meeting in January seemed to be that we rarely use the property. In fact, prior to the pandemic, the foundation often had around 20 separate events each year. The most intensive use was generally during the summer, and most years the property was in use for 6 to 8 weeks between Memorial Day and Labor Day. We also used the property during the weekends and extended weekends throughout the year. Overall, there were activities at the property for at least 90 days a year, often more. Attendance on all occasions was frequently more than 100 people, and we had a number of events lasting 4 days or more with 160 people. Our largest event had over 400 people, with more than 200 staying overnight. The facility at the former Camp Wilmette was designed to accommodate well over 200 people staying overnight. Based on information from the Bobo Yeshiva, pardon me if I don't pronounce it correctly, both as presented to the planning board during prior meetings and as communicated to the Georgia Foundation, their use of the property is likely to be less intense than ours. Many at the January Planning Board meeting expressed concern about Silver Lake Dam and more generally about the environmental impact of the Bobo Yeshiva's use of the property. The concern about the dam is understandable, and as you are aware, there is dam assessment reports that is for the first step in maintaining and upgrading the dam. That report outlines subsequent steps to be taken in conditions in coordination with the New York DEC, pardon me, that will take place over several years. Any owner of the property will be required to continue the process, and Bobo Yeshiva has expressed their commitment to maintaining the dam. Recognizing the water supplies and septic systems are ongoing concern of the Department of Health, and any owner will need to comply with their requirements. It may nonetheless be useful to recognize that the water supplies and septic systems were all designed for Camp Wilmette's use, which was significantly more intensive than the Georgia Foundation, and that the use that the Bobo Yeshiva has proposed and presented. Similarly, any owners of the property remain subject to all DEC regulations related not only to the dam, but also other environmental issues. Lastly, long-term projects such as the renovation of the Silver Lake Dam are difficult to undertake when the question of future ownership is uncertain. In the absence of any new substantive factual information related to the Yeshiva Bobo's application, we hope that the planning board will come to decision at their meeting on February 28th. Yours, Tom Manley, Director of the Georgia Foundation of New York. CC Barish Rubin, Robert Yeshiva, Crystal Weston, Town of Tusten, Elliot Rubin, the Law Office of Elliot Rubin, Joel Rosenfield, I can't pronounce that, Lashen Gili. Good, that was good. Joseph Gianola, the Georgia Foundation, Martin S. Miller, Esquire, Neglu, Foley, SVN, Deegan Collins, Commercial Realty.
comments.
Okay. One of the major comments in the letters and public comment was on traffic and buses coming and going. Joel, would you care to address how many buses will be coming and going and how much traffic would be? Please, that way you can be heard.
So our plan is, as we've stated before, I see there are a lot of new faces, a lot of people, so I, reiterate again, we have a school that operates in Muncie, New York. He's the principal dean of the school, the yeshiva. It's for 10th and 11th grade, approximately 15, 16-year-olds. There will be up to 150 children. That's the max capacity that his school has year-round. And the plan is to bring all the children from the school that attend the school today throughout the year. And they will, during the summer, move over here. So we anticipate that the way it will work, the first day that they come over, there'll be 2 or 3 buses, depending how many children there are that year, that will bring the kids here, drop them off with their packages, buses leave. The children generally will stay here for 2 months, which is approximately July and August. The Jewish calendar doesn't always work along, so sometimes it'll be June 26th or July 2nd, whatever. So somewhere there, approximately 8.5 weeks, they will be here. Usually for one Shabbos, one weekend in the summer, the boys would go home. Some would go back to the city or to Muncie, or if they have parents that are up here during the summer, would go. Generally the same thing. Buses will take them. I don't have a son now in the yeshiva, but last year I did, when they were during the summer in Monroe, New York, and same thing happened. Me as a parent, I never went to visit. The boys came home for one Shabbos. They took a bus to all the kids that were at the Liberty during the summer. That would take all the kids that are in the Liberty area. Would be another bus that would take to the Fallsburg area, and then there would be a bus that would take to the city. So that's what we anticipate regarding busing and bringing the boys. It wouldn't be any different than the Goethe Foundation also bringing up people with buses, dropping them off, leaving, but by currently or any retreat style conference style thing, there would be constantly, let's say 1 week or 1 weekend or 2 weeks. Here would be the same boys would be there for 2 months from the beginning to end. There wouldn't be any changeover or every 2 weeks new kids or whatever. It would be, this is basically the programming that we have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
3 minutes. Yeah, thank you.
I'll sign it.
Okay. Mary's getting her timer out here. We'll open to public comment. Please try to limit yourself to 3 minutes. If you've spoken before, please give somebody else a chance. If you've written us one of our pile of letters, also please give somebody else a chance because we've already seen your comment. So I will take a person who'd like to come up and speak to us.
And if I could just interject, we're not reopening the public hearing. This is just public comment now.
Correct.
Public hearing was closed at the last
Right.
meeting.
Yes.
So this is an opportunity for additional comment, but this is not a continuation of the public hearing.
Your name?
Hi, thank you. My name is Denise Dunleavy. I live on Crystal Lake Road. Briar Road is the road behind me. My concern is that traffic, I understand your position that the buses will be infrequent carrying the students, but there's a lot of accessory traffic involved when you're feeding housing and maintaining a group of 150 students plus all the teachers and faculty. Food trucks, there's just a lot of delivery. That road was redone very recently, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The cost, I think, is probably several $100,000. It's a one-lane road. And when the buses and trucks go on, it's not marked on the shoulder. The shoulder had to be redone this past summer at cost to our town. It's a lot of money. To the taxpayers' burden. And I'm concerned about that. I don't know if we've addressed the impact of the accessory traffic besides the buses bringing the children back and forth to school. That's all.
Have a good day. Denise? Denise, before you leave, make sure you speak to me.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Yes, Star. Speak 2 times. No, it's not.
Good evening, my name is Star Hesse. I was listening to what the gentleman was saying about the intentions for the camp. And I was struck by the fact that he didn't mention anything about any of the environmental concerns that have been raised. As regarding the opening of this camp with that many people. I have a statement I would like to read. This is a
He
special
wasn't
use
asked to
permit.
address that stuff. I
I'm
asked
sorry?
him about traffic. That's
I
why I asked him to address the traffic.
Okay, but even without being asked, I still haven't heard any response from anybody about the concerns that have been raised about the environmental issues that are going to be impacting the community. And basically, it's hard to understand how any permits for development of the old Camp Wellmet property in Narrowsburg, town of Tusten, can be considered when there are so many serious questions about allowing them. The overriding concern here is not who gets the permits, but that whoever gets them proceeds in a way that fully complies and conforms with all federal, state, town laws, codes, and comprehensive plan, all designed to protect and preserve the quality of life and the environment of the town of Tusten and the surrounding communities. So many of these questions have not been answered and or fully vetted by appropriate town officials, something that must happen before any special use permits can be even considered, let alone issued. A wealth of documentation has been submitted to the planning board and other town officials, laying out in some great detail areas of concern and irreversible damage that will result from the failure to ensure compliance with all established safeguards and developmental restrictions. One example, the previously submitted attached February 23rd report from Mr. Frank Boccia, Consulting Engineer Services. He goes in detail about the problems where this plan doesn't conform with preserving water, keeping the waste under control, and or having the traffic being taken care of. His main concern seemed to be most of the water, but there have been other people that have submitted these reports, and it's quite detailed. I know the board has each received a copy of that. I will be handing out a copy of it again. So basically, there is no undo button for pollution. Once it happens, the air, land, water, and quality of life in a community is ruined. Please look at all the ramifications and base your decision on this project on all the information you've been given. I don't see how anyone can approve a permit, a special use permit, that does not address the issues that have been raised about the environmental and other concerns.
Who'd like to go next?
Good evening. I'm going to keep it really short.
Identify.
Pardon?
Your name?
Oh, Jay Nidek. So the application for the proposed use is an educational retreat, but there is no special use category in the Tustin zoning code for for educational retreat. There is, however, a definition of a summer camp, and that I do believe that this satisfies, whether or not there's a religious study as well at this proposed use. It's a summer camp. I think we can, there's semantics. We can dance around that as much as we want, but we've got teenagers, children coming for 2 months during the summer. I can read the definition in the zoning, but I don't think I need to do that. We're talking about a summer camp, and that's not permitted in our zone. And in addition to that, we already have a bunch of summer camps within a few miles of this proposed project. And the comprehensive plan of the town of Tusten doesn't allow for an concentration of the same use in a particular area. So I would just say that this is something to think about. And I would also say that if we're talking about semantics and what is this? Is it a summer camp? Is it an educational retreat? What is an educational retreat? I think that the zoning board of appeals needs to make those decisions. I think that it's not in the purview of the planning board to define these things. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Hi, Brian Mendoza. I'm very actually a question for you. You can or cannot answer it now. I don't know, Ken, but as I understand this process, right? Because we went through it when Susan applied for a special use for the Chi Hive on Main Street, right? And we sent out all those mailers to all the neighbors and said, hey, there's going to be a hearing and stuff. And then people responded, they showed up or they didn't. In our case, I don't think anybody did hear it. A lot of people who showed up. And I'm just wondering, we go through that process to mail all the neighbors, let everybody know what you're doing, make sure they come and have a voice. But I'm just wondering, is it it feels like that's of no use if the planning board then looks at the paper and says, well, all the neighbors don't want it, nobody, and they have reasons and they point out all these things, but ultimately our hands are tied, right? And if our hands are tied as a population that has an elected, town board, et cetera, we vote in the people that should speak for us, and then the elected representatives have put, you guys on the board to again further represent us. It's if we're all not doing it, but everybody's against something, it's just a little disconnected to me as how, it feels very pointless, right? That the rules are just going to override what we as a community have invested in our comprehensive plan and elected people that we think represent our views and so on. We've done all of that, but ultimately that doesn't translate into what happens in the town. Just feels really disconnected to me.
so you should make a recommendation to the zoning rewrite to do away with this notification.
Of course, it's state law.
Okay.
Can I address Brian's comment? Is that appropriate at this point, or should we hold it for later?
Okay, go ahead. I don't know if it's appropriate, Mike, but go ahead.
Well, that's fine.
I don't know what you're thinking about.
No, at the end of the day, we are governed by the code, the ordinances, and the laws passed by the town board.
Is it possible to speak up a little bit? We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Well, I'm talking fairly loudly.
I'm right here.
We all can't hear you.
Stand up.
Just to address what Brian was saying, we are governed by a code book. We're governed by the rules, by the ordinances that are passed by the town board. When an applicant comes before the planning board, we can attach certain conditions to an application if it's approved, but we really have to be following what is already laid out. So we can't just, if we like something or dislike something, we have to be governed by what's already laid down in the law. And it's essentially a rule of law situation here, because these things can be appealed to the ZBA, they can be appealed to other venues. So we have to basically go with what we've got. And that's basically looking at that, reviewing that is all we can really do.
Mike, just to correct something you said, there is no appeal from an action by the planning board to the zoning board of appeals.
Right, it would have, if it's,
If someone's dissatisfied and feels themselves aggrieved by an action of this body, their recourse is to go to court.
but nonetheless, that's what we've got and that's what we have to deal with.
I'm Nora Eisenberg. From here in Harrisburg, I think the fundamental problem was entertaining this whole project, which is a summer camp. It's a summer camp with lots of indoor activities, but I've been to summer camps where there are lots of indoor activities where the curriculum may not be the same curriculum, but there's a lot of study. There are a lot of studios. Children are inside for much of the day, and then they're outside for recreational activities that swimming and some of the other things that, you know, that the kids at this yeshiva would do. But I don't understand how in any terms you can call it an educational center. But it is a summer camp. So the whole premise of the application defies the law, defies the coding, the zoning regulations. I just don't see any way this can proceed.
Anybody else?
Crystal, you have anybody on Zoom that wants to come in?
Steve Pinto right here.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Tried to make copies for you, but it didn't work out as planned. Again, Steve DePinto, I've been up here since 1971. Bagney, of course.
Sir? Excuse me, if you could please stand at the podium, I would greatly appreciate it so we can get you so that Paul can see you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as I was saying, I've been up here since 1971 on Blind Pond Road, diagonally across what used to be Camp Wilmot, 189 Blind Pond Road, and it's quite obvious that place has always been a camp. They want to continue using it as a camp, but it's been set up as a camp. I don't see how children are going to go through school all year, and then comes the summertime, they're in school again. Sometime is the time for camps. That's obvious. Up in the Catskills here, there's summer camps, possibly occupied by Bob Yeshiva. I have a couple here. One right on Route 17B that was there. That has closed down. But that was one right up here. It was there for years. Showing you that summertime is a camp time for them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Would you like? Would you like?
All this, the man.
Okay,
I know it is, yeah.
back to my spot.
And. All right, you're giving us this. What is the point of giving this?
So that you can see what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about a history of camps,
That they come and they go?
no, that they use during the summertime, and that's what, on Route 17B there, on the corner of Cooper's,
I know where it is.
okay. So then you understand what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
Okay, so to repeat myself, that is a, photograph of a camp on Route 17B. Okay? You got that?
Yeah, that's fine.
And previously used by, I believe, Bob Yeshiva. Okay,
What's the basis of your belief?
passing by it since 1971.
So why do you say they've used it?
Well, it's been advertised that way. I said possibly they. You know,
Well, they are disagreeing with you, so
Okay, they can,
forget that.
they can. They can.
So you showed us this picture of the old Esther Manor camp.
Yeah,
And it's there,
yes,
okay,
it is there.
doesn't really make a point to me.
Okay. So you'll see here also from museum. From a Stein yeshiva. I will show you the history of how important camps were through the yeshiva community. I apologize. You're welcome. Thank you. So,
Podium, please.
podium,
And beyond that.
So we can hear.
okay,
Thank you.
I want to give you something so you can hear and look at.
80% of the day will be between praying, learning. There is recreation. That's why we're going to have a swimming pool. And there will be boys playing ball a little bit. I have major leagues stuff. But there will be recreation. We are not going to have or with the dress system where we'll be announcing, okay, changes should go here, like you see sometimes in other camps, the sports camps, the girls camps.
Camp,
Many groups and bunks, and we have to know what's going on or phone calls. So it will be from either in the last room or the synagogue or in the classrooms or rooms. So and I think with having this side, it will maybe be the stupid piece of things or this outdoor space. Regarding the downward, I think we indicated that on the plan already.
I could go on further, but
We've already,
This has been presented. You're playing a recording of a planning board meeting. They've all heard this.
well, I want to bring to your attention to make sure that you did hear the fact that their own words more than once have said it's a camp.
No, that's not what he said. He was comparing the differences
No.
between
No,
their,
see,
their program.
You're going out of your way to be
okay,
against,
enough.
that's a problem.
Okay, I'm not gonna argue
And
with
you're
you.
supposed to be an
Had
advocate.
more
for
than
the
your 3
community.
minutes, enough.
So enough with that, all right?
Yeah.
And let's get back to the facts. The facts specifically say out of their mouth that it's a learning camp. Listen to it. If you said you did, then you didn't listen to it clearly. It says learning camp. That's what they want to use it as. If you can prove otherwise, please do so. But it's a learning camp. They said so. That's it. Thank you.
Now, Crystal, did you have anybody on Zoom that wanted to speak?
Yes, hold on 1 second. I have Joanne. Joanne, give me 1 second. Okay, go ahead,
Thank you. Can you
Joanne.
hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you for reopening some public comment. It's much appreciated. Just a couple of quick comments. I have lived on Blind Pond Road about a quarter mile down, eighth of a mile down the road from the corner for, since 1985. Longer than Gurdjieff has had the property. I just have to say, I don't know what, I appreciate that they wrote a letter, but I don't know what they're talking about. I have never, ever, ever seen hundreds of people over 90 days a year using that property, ever. Nor did I ever see them bring buses up. So that's number one. Number two is, again, everything about this plan says it's a summer camp. Everything about it says it's a summer camp. Why else would they move 150 boys up from their own school that they already have in Muncie that they go to 10 months a year? Why would they come up to Beaverbrook for 2 months of a year in the summer? Because it's a summer camp. That's why they're having a swimming pool and recreation. Our zoning that everybody worked really hard on in this town to change our zoning to R2 and to exclude the use of summer camps really should be respected, as well as our town's comprehensive plan, which states that we should not be putting things in that would be detrimental or cause a huge change in our neighborhoods. This will cause a huge change. As much as they're saying that it won't, it will. And if they're in there and they buy this property to run as a summer camp, who's to say that they're not going to put more than 150 students in? Who's to say that they might not decide to make it an all year round school extra location, an annex of their Muncie school? It is not the right place. It's unsafe. It is not the right corner. We already are swamped with camps. Camp Sternberg is right down the road on the same street. The Boy Scouts have camps right down the road. And it just is not the right location for it. And I really wish that you would reconsider it. This is not a use that it's approved for. This is a summer camp, and this location is not supposed to be a summer camp. Thank you.
Crystal, do you have anyone else?
Yes, I have Stephen Barshoff.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to make a few comments on behalf of the applicant. When the public, whether online or in the room, have finished. So I've been muted this whole time, so I just wanted to say that so that you'd leave me unmuted for a few moments. That's all.
Can you make your comments now, Stephen?
I can if the public is finished. I just wanted to respond once the public had finished. So
Okay.
if we are finished,
All
then
right.
of course I'm ready
So
to go.
hold off, then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
I don't know who else we might have on Zoom.
I have Mark. I've asked to unmute.
Hi, I actually wrote in the chat. You can just read that. That's fine.
If Mark says this sounds to me as a summer camp and not a school, since it is only 2 years a month. If they are a school, I assume they do not pay taxes and thus will, with increased road usage, hold on, my computer's in the way here, etc., costs will increase the burden on the town financially. I feel this is a problem with the members of the community should not need to incur. I have one more comment online. I believe it's Mr. Wyden.
No comments, just listening in.
Okay, then I'm sorry, that was someone's called BW.
Yep, that's me. It stands for Brett Wallace. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I'm sorry that I didn't catch this start of this debate. And I listened to briefly the last one, so I'm sorry if this was already covered. I just had a few just brief questions. Maybe Mr. Barshoff could address this or somebody else, and I'm not sure if these were already addressed again. I'm sorry if they were. My only questions were, I was spending just a little time trying to get to know the organization this last weekend, and I was just curious. I mean, a couple things came up in Muncie. like, if you just look in the past, it was like health code violations. There were lots of neighborhood complaints. There was something to do with a fine that was paid for $5,000 for some act that was, supposedly done. There was just a whole kind of, I listened to the last meeting and it was very much like, want to be a good neighbor. And I respect that a lot. And I have no issue with, the character of anything. But it did strike me as odd, when I think of a good neighbor, I don't put like lots of health and building and fire violations in that same, understanding. I don't know how to square those things up. And I was just hoping for a little clarity, like maybe like what is the extent of those violations? I mean, they were clearly marked out. There were things by the Food and Health Administration, the Department of Health. So these weren't just like a one-off thing. And I just wanted to better understand that, because those things, it's not to say that they couldn't be remedied, but if there's a pattern there, I mean, this is a small town. It's a small road. I don't think, and I'm not saying that, I guess in some, like, it would just be nice to understand, like, what is the history of all these things that come up in just a simple, just a very simple Google search. When you're starting just to look, there's articles going back 10 years. That just struck me as a little bit, something that really wasn't covered. And yeah, that was my question, just for some clarity on what those were. Has the organization changed? That those things don't exist as much anymore. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have one more comment from Wanda Gangle. Hold on, Wanda. There you go.
Okay, hi. All right, I have just a couple of thoughts. First of all, I guess we need a memo on our town laws to actually define an educational center. So we should add that. If I am to understand, if there's a questioning of what the use is, and one planning board member would like to have this go to the ZBA, can they request it at this time? If a planning board member would like to question this more into the ZBA, can they request it at this time?
They could request it, but the whole board would have to approve it to send it.
And
Oh.
I don't think there's any jurisdiction for the ZBA to entertain that kind of a request.
Okay, I was just wondering. You have a tough decision. I send you all love.
I think the answer is no.
But it can be in the minutes, as far as someone on the planning board actually trying to stand up for the community.
I think you need to stop talking for people on the planning board. If they want to stand up, let them stand up. Let's move on to something else, Wanda.
Thank you. It's it.
Okay, at this time, I don't see anyone else with any hands raised on Zoom.
Joel, do you want to first see what Steve to speak first? Okay, Steve, you're back on. It's your turn. You have things to answer here. See what you can help with.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to bring up something that has not been discussed tonight, but I just want to be sure that we're all on the same page. My understanding is that the town's engineer still needs to complete a review of some of the materials that have been submitted. And that my understanding is that that for that reason alone, this board would not be able to and should not be acting tonight, because it needs to have full information, especially from the town's consultant. Is that
correct, Steve?
That's
Okay.
correct.
That's correct.
So I just wanted everybody to understand, that people in the public, that the applicant wants to be sure that the planning board is getting full and complete technical advice and input from its own consultants, and that we are not pushing the planning board to act precipitously or without being fully informed. So that's item number one. Item number 2 is many of the comments that have been made tonight were made previously in one form or another. There's a lot of the repetition, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I understand that people have deep concerns, and we will address those concerns in writing. We're going to provide that material for the board. There are a few items that I would like to be able to point out to the community so that they understand this. There have been multiple questions tonight about whether or not a religious retreat is a legitimate use of property. It is. Those of you that want to Google the case, I litigated it, so I know the case. It's called the Talmud Torah case, TALMUD TORAH, involving the town of Wawarsing. And in that case, the exact issue that you have been discussing tonight was adjudicated by the appellate division in Albany, and that the summer retreat by a religious institution is considered just that. Now, you all can read the case and you can make your own decisions in that regard, but I want you to be aware of it because we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or violate the law. In fact, what we are doing is following what the courts have said the law is. So that's one item that I would hope you would consider. The second item that I hope the public will consider is that there are many statements that are made that fall into the category of, well, if there was an approval, what will they do about this and what will they do about that? And they might violate this condition and that condition. And I would also caution members of the public that one cannot presume in the review or the approval or disapproval of an application that an applicant is going to violate the conditions of approval. That's why you have code enforcement officers, and that's why a planning board puts in conditions of approval to protect the surrounding community and to protect the public. And if an applicant who does get an approval does not live up to those conditions, I will tell you one thing, that this lawyer turns around and says to his clients always, you must follow the rules. You have to follow the approval. If you've been given one and you have conditions on it, you have to live up to those conditions. And one of the conditions that will be in the approval, if it should come, and will differentiate this applicant from prior property owners, is this applicant is committed, and it'll be in writing, that this applicant, if it gets an approval and it does undertake its project, that it is going to take care of the problems that are there with the dam. Everybody has been talking about, or many times said, the dam this, the dam that. Okay, well, what is it that exactly is going to improve if this application is disapproved? Nothing about the dam. There's been a long-standing ignoring of the dam, and people have expressed real concerns, and you have a neighbor that's looking to, or coming to be your neighbor, I hope, that is making a commitment to take care of that. So if there's a question about what is being a good neighbor, I don't know how much clearer it can be to say that this group proposes to come in and address a long-standing problem that has been of real and legitimate concern of members of the downstream community, those of you who live downstream from that dam. Now, we're going to address other concerns that have been raised. We will do them in writing. We're going to address all of the issues that are there, including water and sewer. But first, we want to be able to see what the town's engineer has to say. So I want you all to know that it is not that your concerns fall on deaf ears. You may not like the answers that we give, but I promise you, you are heard. And if I have my way, you will see in writing exactly how we address those concerns and make commitments to address those concerns. So that's the most that any applicant, I think, can do, and most that I can do. If there is steadfast opposition that is in the category of it doesn't matter what my client says, it doesn't matter what they do, it doesn't matter what they offer, and it doesn't matter what they promise, and it doesn't matter what they commit to, those kinds of concerns, those can never be addressed. That kind of opposition can never be addressed or ameliorated. Maybe time cures it if people become acquainted with one another and become good neighbors. So we're going to try in every way we can to address the legitimate concerns that have been raised. We will do so in writing, and you have some idea and hint now of what it is that we will be saying in our written materials.
Thank you, Steve.
Did you ask something?
Denise,
Thank you.
is this a question for Steve? or for
No,
us?
it's
Just a question.
okay, it's a question.
Okay,
It's a question. I don't know the answer to it. I should have been here before. I retired recently and I want to become involved, so here I am. I have a question. My
keep
question
that
is,
in mind.
okay, please, I'm available. When the town decided to say no more camps, what was the decisional force behind that? There was a reason. And you can't just change the application by saying we're not a camp, we're something else, but we really are a camp. To get around that reason, to circumvent the plan of the town, not to have any more camps.
I don't think that was really done. I've worked on both zonings and I've worked on the 2 comprehensive plans. And the area in Beaver Brook has the hunting clubs, it had the Boy Scouts, it had Camp Sternberg, Camp Wilmette, all these bigger acreages, which was looked at to keep them bigger, keep it more rural. Yes, there's a camp there in a few months and they use part of it, but a lot of it's just wooded area, an open area. And that was part of keeping the town rural, to keep this area in camps and so on. You say they're too concentrated now, but they've been concentrated there since God knows when.
I'm not saying that, I'm
Camp
just asking
1935.
why was the change made to say the camps are no longer within the zoning?
It's only in this little zoning of R2, which has changed. It used to be for businesses and now it's going to the same acreage as R1 and it's really lost its impetus of being an R2 special business district. And camp is allowed in R1, around it in most of the town.
But on the books today, a camp is not allowed in R2. So they're applying for an exemption, yet they're
But
really calling their operation, which is a camp, not a camp.
well, they're calling it not a camp, so we're not looking at a camp. And this operation has been there since 1935, so
But this is a new operation coming in, calling itself not a camp, doesn't change the fact that you can't call me, something else. And I become that person. I'm me, I am who I am. And you need to look and see who are they really? Is it a camp? It is a camp.
okay, thank you.
The issue raised by the attorney is a very well-spoken, very well recognized attorney who wins appeals in Albany. Is not that we are unwilling to accept the people of the camp, but it's the camp. So if you're a camp, say you're a camp.
Okay. It was-
Information.
Can you stand up and just come to the,
Yeah,
thanks.
the point of information is on that case that Steve just mentioned. The way they bypassed the regulations of the town of Wawasan was that they determined it a religious, religious worship. So that the camp and even the school part of it was not allowed, but the religious worship was.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Yael Saddam. I've never been here, so I'm new to this. And this may or may not be relevant. I just think that it's important to note, with all due respect, Stephen, I come from Brooklyn, where there was a school and a building that was a school that was zoned and that was stated to be a yeshiva in Brooklyn. And that's how they got permits to build the building, to build it, 9 stories high, did not get zoning permits for that, and then turned around and sold it on the open market so that we all bought into it and didn't have C of Os to even be legally living in the building. So when you talk about being a good neighbor, that is BS. A good neighbor doesn't do something like that. It's not okay.
So I have no idea what you're referring to in terms of zoning in Brooklyn. I do work as a land use attorney in New York City. I know that the New York City zoning laws for uses that are community facility uses is very different than the zoning up here. So, and also when you say, when you, excuse me, I let you speak. It's not okay to talk over me. It's just not. And when you say they, it seems like what you're saying is that all yeshivas behave the same and that they is a group and that the entire group behaves the same. That, I would say, is about as clear a statement of implicit bias I've heard recently. It's explicit. It's not even implicit. So I don't think that my client ought to be held to a standard of what someone else in Brooklyn did. They should be judged on this application in this community based on their compliance with the law.
Anybody else?
And just because when, I was really curious when she mentioned the ruling, and so I did pull it up, and I just want to read that it was determined that the synagogues and the rabbis' residences were the basis for the appeal of it being a religious facility. And again, if that law is going to be applicable here, I would imagine that we'd be seeing a proposal for synagogues and rabbi residences instead of focus on boys and accommodations. And maybe we can revise the application to include all of that, or the applicant can. But you know, when I read that in the Justia filing referencing Mr. The lawyer, Mr. Barshaw, it really struck me that, like, that's a big difference between the two, and that would certainly, like, there's similarity, but I don't think it's fair to just say, hey, there's a case, it's one, and that's the law, and it's settled law, because this very much seems like a very different application.
I would encourage everybody to read the case more carefully. You can look at the briefs that were filed. What the town's position was that this was not a religious use, it was a camp. That was the position that they took during all of this. That is what their governmental body said. That was what was appealed, and that was what was rejected by the appellate division. And the reason that it was rejected is because there were religious staff, rabbis there, and religious education was going on. Exactly what will be happening at this facility if the application is granted. Okay, please do read the papers. There's nothing that I have to hide. I certainly know the case well because I litigated it.
Okay, thank you. Joel, did you have anything else? No. Okay, at this point, we're going to terminate our comments. Since, as you heard during the thing, there are a couple outstanding items. No further action will be taken on this evening. So next month, hopefully we'll have our reports in and we can continue.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else? Okay. Everybody else?
Okay. Yeah, no, that one. Okay. Anybody that's might.
We're gonna take a brief recess because there is a second applicant that we're going to consider tonight. If anybody wants to take off now, this is your opportunity to make a graceful exit.
I'm going to avail myself of that. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night.
Hi.
Homeowners association. We should take all of it. So we can't hear it. Yes. Third Tuesday, whatever that is. Yeah, absolutely.
Ken, you have another question online?
We're closed.
Okay.
28, March 28th.
Yeah. Okay, Russell Miller, Jacob, whoever wants to go first.
Come on up.
That would have been nice, but
Told you, Jay.
I thought we had discussed going first.
I thought maybe you wanted to come
Different
in
time,
later.
different day would have been nice.
Sorry about that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Crystal, we're good?
Yep, you're good. Go for it.
All right, so we're back again. We had previously gotten a special use permit at 90 Main Street. That plan had kind of fallen through. And we were able to secure a lease at 93 Main Street. So we're here again, asking for basically the same plan. Minor differences, mainly the address. But it's a 10-barrel brewery with a associated restaurant inside of the brewery. Yeah, so you have our papers and we're here to answer questions.
How's your seating changed? It's obviously much less space now.
It's a lot less space, interior, but only in a sense that previously half of the space was gonna be the equipment. And we were gonna kind of spread that out. With this space, we're condensing the equipment. So the space for actual humans is relatively the same within I think 15%.
Do you know offhand how many people that was?
Interior at this space is, according to Jim's calculation, I think was 64.
Okay, so Jim has looked at that already.
Yeah, well, he just, literally just pulled out his phone and we, did a square footage calculation and, right.
I saw something happening in the driveway.
Yes.
Can you totally block that from the other building, or will you allow them to get to their basement door, or is that? Actually, they have a sidewalk to the basement door, don't they, beside the driveway?
So I know Russ, spoke with Jim, who lives next door yesterday, and we're gonna work with him, whatever if there needs to be a fire easement or, access, we'll provide that. We weren't exactly sure what he was requiring at the time. I don't think he knew either.
But no, that wasn't a part of the conversation, but in terms of what we would need to do, and we want to work as we did previously closely with yourselves and with our neighbours to ensure that what we have is suitable and appropriate and within all of the conditions of code and the law. So we will do what we need to do appropriately.
We're not aware of any easements that are running with the property, but obviously we want to be good neighbors, so we'll.
I don't remember, and they don't have stairs up to the apartment, but they do have their basement door there on the side.
Could you?
Yeah, you can. Hi, so there's the alleyway between the bank and 101 Main Street, which is the building that I own. And well, first I want to thank Russ for taking the time to speak to me yesterday, and I know Russ so much and was great addition to the community as a team really. I have a 4-foot easement on that driveway. I don't know what that means in terms of zoning, et cetera, et cetera. But when I bought the building, I was told that I have a 4-foot easement alongside my building. On the back corner of the bank, that's about perpendicular to the stairs that go up to the back entrance of the building where my apartment is. My only concern is if there's a roof deck added, that would be about 12 feet away from the living room windows. So, and I know Rasmussen's are putting residential space supposedly, or not Rasmussen's, but in the Rasmussen building, so there will be residential people close, and I'm just concerned about what's it like to have a roof deck with music and people having a great beer 12 feet from your living room window till 10 o'clock or whatever. So,
and obviously we're concerned about that too. We want to make sure Jim maintains his quiet enjoyment of his property. So we're gonna work with him on whatever plan needs to happen to ensure that that continues, whether that's some sort of privacy wall on his side. Whatever it's gonna look like to make sure that he's happy as well.
And at this point, you're not going on the roof yet.
No, that's down the road. This was just a conceptual plan as, we had discussed with the town who owns the building that we would like to do this in the future.
And also any further addition going forward, and I appreciate everybody's time here, so I don't want to harp onto this too much, but any future addition of a roof deck there would be a beautification aspect as well. It's not, you know, what we're going for as an aesthetic is much more elevated than, you know, just a kind of a kind of dive bar type situation, which is not what breweries are all about. Much more family orientated, but the hours and everything are appropriate and according to that.
Yeah, it's
So I
not
think
a
when we get to that
late
point,
night bar.
I think you'll get a lot more confidence in
I'll
terms
be
of
home.
just Russell.
I'll be home, Mike. We'll both be home. Very early. But yeah, as of now, that is not before the board. Roof deck is not before the board. But we do appreciate Jim's concerns, obviously, and it's definitely on the front of our mind moving forward. If and when we get there.
Do we need to mention? I don't know. I don't think there's anything that's.
Well,
I'll just pose one question, which is probably the most popular question in town with respect to that property is, what happens to the vault? Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Russ and I were just there before we came to the meeting, and it's a big question. We obviously can't get rid of it. It's there forever. The building will fall down around it in 100 years or so, but we're trying to figure out how to use it, whether it becomes part of the space, the entertaining space.
We want people to be able to enjoy it. It's quite a spectacle. I think everybody comes in and is wowed by it. I know I was. So that's definitely an
For all the
intention.
money in it that you're gonna make.
Well, I wanted to use it as a refrigerator, but
Walk-in box, right?
he vetoed it.
Yeah, that.
Walk-in box.
Well, the one side of it that's not as pretty, we are gonna use as the fridge. I don't know if you can't really see it on here, but there's actually two vaults.
Right.
One with the big 8-foot
Oh, really?
door, and then there's a smaller one that they use, I think, for day-to-day business. But they both have almost a foot thick concrete walls, so they make good refrigerators.
Especially in the winter, they're really cold. I worked there for a long time.
It was cold in the summer when we walked in there. It was, it's perfect for a refrigerator. We won't have to do much to it.
Well, I think in answer to your question, Mike, I think we do want to use it appropriately.
Centerpiece.
And that feels like a centerpiece, and
Yeah.
we're excited to kind of bring some life back to that building that's been sitting there for a while now, so.
Yeah, that's basically what you see with the photos here. I don't know if we can get it up on the screen, Crystal, if you have it digitally. Okay, so that's actually the leasehold right there. She's got it back up there. That's the last. Up. Keep going.
Which way do you want me to keep going up?
Yeah, just started the first photo and we'll just run through it real quick.
I think
right
this is
there.
the first one.
Yeah, so actually, forgive me for that, the vault was cut off, but you'll see there's a door behind what says bar. That's the second vault door, and it's just a 6'8" steel door. So we're gonna leave that as the vault, and that's gonna be the refrigerator, and then the tap lines are gonna come straight out of the wall. That way we don't have.
So that
extension is actually 2 vaults.
Yes.
Yeah, so, right. It's
Oh,
there,
okay.
it's split almost down the middle. It's actually the 8-foot door one is actually a little smaller, but
Okay.
I wanted both for refrigeration. Russ told me no, so we're gonna have to do something else with it. But so yeah, this is the basic layout, and you'll see, if you guys remember, it's been a few months, compared to the other plan, the equipment is condensed down into that bottom right corner there. So the idea is to keep the public away from the buttons. So.
Good idea.
You're right. The backside of the circles there that fermenting vessels have to be, and then bright tanks, which is basically another fermenter. The backside of those, they don't have any valves, buttons, or anything to break. So the backside of those will be kind of a false wall. And it's something pretty to look at, but there's nothing anyone can break or hurt themselves on. And then that backside, which was the Main Street front where the brew house actually is, we'll keep that separated from the public while it's, public hours. The brewing's gonna happen off hours. There's no safety concerns there. We will not be brewing at all when there's patrons there. And again, we just don't want anyone touching buttons, basically. But you see the kitchen is in the front left portion, and
part of our leasehold, which is on the last page, but I'll show you, is that, we've, carved out a access way, on the north side, right? That's north. There's supposed to be a north arrow there. But we're hoping to do, grab and go food out of a window there. And then that access will flow. If you, Chris, if you go to the next photo,
Previously the drive through.
actually, one more, Crystal. Thank you. Yeah, so there's already a deposit window there. Obviously, we'll have to move it around a little bit, but the idea is if you don't want to come in the brewery, and you just want a quick bite of food, to our knowledge, there's not really that option on Main Street, so we thought we would try to provide it. But it's for you also, if you want to grab the food and then come and sit at one of the tables and have a beer, you're very welcome to do that as well. So that's basically the idea, for the exterior. Obviously, we're gonna have to look into on the far side where the driveway began previously with the bank. We've got some items to discuss with Jim and figure out, what the easement looks like there and what we'll be able to do on that side. But, the idea being, Crystal, back, or down one more photo. Chris, sorry, I didn't want you to be my secretary today, but you kind of see we have a fence identified there. But you can see that the tables kind of wrap around to where basically it was what the existing drive-through was. We wanted to use that as kind of an outdoor, when on a nice day, to have a drink outside.
And you only come in through the front door to get to that, right?
Well, if you go,
I wondered if I saw one. That's what I was trying to remember.
yeah, Crystal, I'm sorry, first photo again. I feel so bad. I know she's cursing me under her breath. But if you see where it says safety up there in the top right,
Yeah.
we're actually punching out a double door to the back, right to the north of it, right there. Thank you.
What, we have steps, Bram?
There's gonna need to be one step. It's about a 13-inch.
That goes up as you go, and I know it's not ground.
Well,
level back there.
we're discussing it. We're trying to figure out a solution to it, but we want it to be
Dig out the
ADA.
driveway.
Well, we gotta keep the water out, so the step will have to be inside. But we're talking about either a fold down ramp to be ADA compliant, or, we're gonna have handrails anyway, but we also need that to have a ramp on it to get kegs in and out as well. So there's multiple uses that we'll have to figure out. But one of the main being that that's also ADA compliant. We'd like the entirety of the property to be ADA compliant. Once the roof deck happens, that becomes a little bit more complicated, but everything else, we'd like it to be. One of the bathrooms is sized for ADA compliance. Then there's another single stall and then a 3 urinal plus basin stall. But yeah, there's not much to it. And we've done this before, so you guys are brewery experts.
Right. Don't let us at the brewery. That's an explosion.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah,
Please
go
forgive
ahead.
me, I'm new to the board.
Yeah, I see that.
And
Welcome.
so the semi-permanent food truck, that's not included in this project at this point?
No, we had discussed that previously, but we think we're gonna go with a permanent kitchen inside. And yeah, that's our plan now. But
Just on the basis thereof of having something that can be accessed all year round. And we really moved away from that, given the kind of weather that we can have. And really the minimal space that we need inside, and the ramifications of putting something inside are minimal. So that feels like a smart move on our part.
I agree.
But we do like the idea of, every now and then if whether, there's a very fine cotton candy cart that goes around town, things of that nature that could show up on, whether it's logging day weekend or something like that, that we feel like we have enough space around what was the previous driveway to potentially bring in other vendors for various events.
Like River Fest.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay, At this point, I think we need to make a motion to be lead agency on this application. Someone like to make that motion, please?
Also motion.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion to be lead agency on Jacobs Narrowsburg Big A Brewing Company. It's on the floor. Any discussions? Right, John? Aye. Barry? Aye. Mary?
Aye.
Brendan? Aye. Aye. Peter? I'm an aye, and Mike.
And an aye.
Okay. Lucky us with the lead agency. So we were given the short environmental assessment form here. You guys don't want to stand for this, that's okay, but you can if you'd like to. And Mary's our main reader, so.
Well, Mary's gonna read it.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Yeah.
It'll be real quick. No, we'll do it.
Thanks. Before Mary does that, just, Amy, we should reflect in the minutes, this is an unlisted action. Understand. That's why we're using the short form.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, just make it short. All right. The project and sponsor information, Jacob L. Johnson, ESQ. The name of the action or project is the Big Eddie Brewery Company. The project location is 93 Main Street, Narrowsburg, New York, 12764. The brief description of the proposed action. Our project consists of brewery and associated dining establishment, consisting of 10 BBL brew house service by a dedicated 400+ amp, 3-phase electrical panel inside of the former Wayne Bank building. We are requesting a special use approval for the light industrial agricultural business / eating and drinking place. The name of the applicant is Jacob L. Johnson, ESQ, 10 Lake Street, Narrowsburg, New York, 12764. Does the proposed action only involve the legislative adoption of planned local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? They check no. 2, does the proposed action require permit approval of funding from any other government agency? If yes, list the name and permit of the approval. Farm brews license from the State Liquor Authority. They check yes. Number 3, the total acreage of the site of proposed action, 0.75 acres. Total acreage to be physically disturbed, 0.25 acres. Total acreage, project site, and any contiguous properties owned or controlled by the applicant or project sponsor, 1.0 acres. Number 4, check all land uses that occur on or adjoining or near the proposed action. Urban, commercial, residential. They don't have, I don't know. But it wouldn't, right? Even though it's right near the river? Okay. Number 5.
I didn't understand what you said, I'm sorry.
This one.
No,
No?
that would be fish
Okay.
farming.
All right, I'm just checking. Is the proposed action, number 5, is the proposed action A, permitted use under the zoning regulation? They check yes. B, consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan? They check yes. Number 6, is the proposed action consistent with the predominant character or of the existing built or natural landscape? Yes. Number 7, is the site of proposed action located in or does it adjoin a state license listed critical environmental area? They check no. Number 8, will the proposed action result in substantial increase in traffic above present level? They check no. B, are the public transportation services available at or near the site of the proposed action? They check no. C, are any pedestrian accommodation of bicycle routes available on or near the site of the proposed action? They check yes. 9, does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? They check yes. Number 10, will the proposed action connect to an existing public or private water supply? They check yes. Number 11, will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities? They check yes. Number 12, does the project site contain or substantially contiguous to a building, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National or State Register of Historic Places, or that has been determined by the Commission of New York State Office of Park, Recreation, Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the state registry or historic place? They check no. B, is the project site or any portion of it located in or adjacent to any area designated as sensitive for the archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office Archaeological Site Inventory? They check no. Number 13, does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by federal, state, or local agency? They check yes.
Mary, that should be no, I'm sorry about
Which
that.
one?
That, the one you just read, 13A.
Yeah, because I was just, okay,
Yeah, that may have been left over.
okay,
from
no problem.
Previous one.
All
Sorry
right,
about that.
you got it. I'm gonna make the correction here. All right, and I'll just initial it. Okay, would the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body? They check no. Number 14, identifying the typical habitat types that occur on or rare or are likely to be found on the project site. Check all the apply. Shoreline, urban,
And again, that should not be checked shoreline, no.
Okay.
The same
right,
error.
okay. Number 15, does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal associated habitats listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered? You check no. Is the project site located in the 100-year floodplain? They check no. 17, will a proposed action create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources? They check no. Will the stormwater discharge flow to adjacent properties? No. B, will the stormwater discharge be directed to established conveyance system, runoff, or storm drains? They check no. Number 18, does the proposed action include construction or other activities that would result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? If yes, they check yes. Our intention is to utilize a 1,000-gallon wastewater tank to treat or suspended anaerobic solids as a byproduct of the brewing process. Number 19, has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? They check no. Number 20, has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been subject of remediation, ongoing or completed for hazardous waste? They check no. I certify that the information provided above is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge. The applicant is Jacob L. Johnson, Esquire, dated 2/10/2023.
Well, unfortunately, I was not able to get internet, but we have a form here we have not used
All right,
for part 2,
okay.
which has changed name on the top. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? And our answers are either small or no impact, or moderate or large impact. So it's a no, it's an urban area, it's a business district. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of critical environmental areas, CEA? No. Will the proposed action result in adverse change in existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
No.
No, street stays the same. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy? And if it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? I think to go as energy efficient as they can, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I got my electric bill today, you need to. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? We'll be using some, but that doesn't really impact it. Wastewater, same thing. You're able to go into the system and the tank that's there and all that, they've been checking out.
Yeah, so Dave and I had a meeting last week and we're actually we decided we're not gonna treat it and then pump it back into the system. We're gonna contract with a local, basically a porta potty company We're gonna collect it, the bad stuff, which is only a few gallons every time we clean a vessel, and just have them pump it the same as they would a porta potty.
So it won't affect the,
It's not going, that,
Public system.
the high level stuff's not going in the system at all.
just the water.
Right.
That's good. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Keeping the building the same, so I would say not.
Saves the ball.
Yes, saving the vault. And that's historic, that's from 1953. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water body, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Okay. We have, I believe, completed part 2. Part 3, we make a determination. And our choices are, if we could result in any large or potential significant adverse parcels, impacts, or if there are none. And so we're checking the box, if you've determined based on the information analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in the significant adverse environmental impacts, and we had all no to small and moderate, so we'll check that box.
You should get a motion to do that.
Yeah. We have a motion to accept the part 2 of the seeker. And
Just one question before we, just definitionally, is Main Street in the 100-year floodplain? No. Okay, that was just.
No.
Well, I'm not too far.
Too high.
Yeah.
That high.
It was water everywhere.
No, I don't think it is, but
your house is long gone.
your house is all gone, so is mine.
Okay, could we have a motion for the environmental seeker? here?
Yes, sir, motion, I make that motion.
Second,
And that motion's for a negative declaration.
Negative that.
do we have any discussion?
No.
Okay, vote, John,
Aye.
Barry, Mary,
Aye.
Brendan.
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
me, aye. Okay, it's carried. So, at this point, we have done our seeker. We've done our neg deck, and we've completed that. Amy, we'll be sending it to county and UGC. So you'll take this and make us copies and, okay. Now, would someone like to make a motion that we set a public hearing?
I will make that motion for a public hearing on the brewery.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
Aye.
Time would be 7:25 on March 28th, is it? Okay, any discussion further?
6:30 would be great.
You'll have to stay up late, sorry, Jay. John?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Brendan?
Aye.
Peter? Mike?
Aye.
Me, aye. Okay, carried. Got a public hearing, you know about sending out 400 notices. Happy mailing.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Anything else we need to do on this one?
No.
At that point, I don't think we have any other business today.
Little comment, or meeting, that's it. Any good? Okay.
So I take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion on the floor. I don't think we vote on that. It's done.
Is anybody going to talk to that economic development breakfast on March 23rd?